you know me. My name is Eugene, and we're on Silver Rides, and we're already rolling. Yeah.
This is so dope.
Yeah.
We're already rolling.
We already rolling.
This was a great interview. This is legendary.
Yeah, and it's that dope, but we just rolling, nigga. Yeah, and it's that dope, but we just rolling. And it's that dope, but we just rolling, nigga. Yeah, and it's that dope, but we just rolling. Yeah, it's that dope, but we just rolling, nigga. Yeah, it's that dope, but we just rolling. Yeah, it's that dope, but we just rolling, nigga. Yeah, it's that dope, but we just.
God, I cannot even make this up to you. This is like a childhood dream of mine coming true. Honored to have Eugene, also known to the WWE world, but his name, of course, is Nick Dinsmore. Hey, man, how's life treating you, man?
Very good, man. It's snowy and cold in South Dakota, man, but we just LIVIN.
Respect, dude. So you got some snow in March, man. That's crazy weather out there, dude.
We got
Staying
another
warm,
foot
though.
coming tomorrow. We got another foot of snow coming tomorrow.
Damn, man. Well, try your best to stay warm up there. That's a cool headband, by the way, man. Got some Jimi Hendrix looking going on. Tell me, man, I honestly got to ask you, just being honest with you, I grew up watching you in the early life of the WWE world, but before then, doing my research, I didn't know that you were actually wrestling before the character Eugene. You know, you did some time in WCW and, of course, OVW, which is your homeland out in Louisville. Talk to me about that, man, the early stages of your wrestling career. What made you want to go into wrestling yourself?
I mean, I started watching wrestling when I was about 8 years old. I watched Saturday Night's Main Event, and I was a fan of Hogan and Roddy Piper, and that's just something that I always wanted to do as a kid. But when I grew up, I actually went to high school with the Nightmare Danny Davis's daughter, who owned OVW, and wow. I was in the homecoming court. I didn't win homecoming king, but I was in the court, and they did a big school celebration, and everybody walked down, and they said, well, Nick wants to be a pro wrestler. And she came to me in the hallway one day, Danny's daughter, April, and said, well, my dad has a wrestling school. So I ended up signing up there in 1996. I wrestled for the Memphis promotion, USWA, in 1997. And then I wrestled a couple shows for WCW before I got signed by WWE in 1999.
Wow. Dude, that's awesome, man. So when you were in Memphis, that was that Jerry Lawler's territory by any chance?
Yeah. The Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler, USWA.
Dude, dope, man. That's what's up. So you actually had an opportunity to know the King and all that stuff before you even went into WWE, as well as Eric Bischoff, of course, being in WCW. Just going in a short stint with WCW, was that honestly, like I say, were you able to experience the WWE and WCW Monday Night Wars? Like, what was your experience with that? Did you get to see any of that?
Yeah. I was on Nitro in '98 when WCW was still on top, and it was me and Lenny Lane. We had a handicap match against Scott Steiner, but he cut a promo, I think, right before it. So I had 40 seconds or something to stand in the ring on live TV and just look around. And I remember I just took that moment to like try to breathe it in because I knew it was something special and it was really cool. I mean, it was packed. We were I think we were in New York. And okay. I can't remember exactly where, but I mean, it was packed, and WCW was on top with the high ratings right before it went over the edge in 1999.
Dude, that's dope, man. So, Nick, I mean, you're honestly, if you don't know, you're one of the more polarizing figures, I would say, in the early 2000s, because you weren't really in the WWE for much long, but you had an impact on a lot of people's minds, mine in particular, just being for real, because a lot of people just being for real, me including, being a young kid, being naive in wrestling, I really thought that's who you were, but you really put it off in a great way of acting. That gives kudos to your acting skills as well, man. Did you have a big impact, or what was your input on the character, Eugene? I know I'm going from subject to subject, but I'm really excited to get to talk to you about this because it's really crazy.
Like now, if the guys go to the Performance Center, they're going to do a big character research and find the archetype of the character and what this character represents. For me, I just watched kids when they would get excited, or I tried to think about how I felt when I was a kid watching wrestling. You know, if somebody yells at a kid, he might ball up and cry, or if he gets embarrassed, hands start to sweat or something, and you just get excited. And I would look at kids and how they reacted, because at the time, Raw and SmackDown had split brands, and Hurricane was the only kids character in WWE. So I knew one of the shows didn't have a kids character. So there was a target audience that wasn't being, fulfilled. So I knew everybody wanted to, this was after Austin and after NWO, but everybody wanted to be a cool, strong heel and get all their moves in. And I wanted to be complete opposite because I was never going to be a body guy. I was never going to be the biggest guy. I was never going to be the best high flyer, but there was no comedy. There was no sympathetic guy that gets beat up that somebody else can stand up for. So it was like just a character that was not being represented.
Wow. And you took that, I mean, you took that in the wrestler's cliche by the bootstraps and ran with it, man. Respect to you. And just being free, I did my research on you and I heard you say some previous interviews. And this is another thing that I just honestly learned probably last week. You were Doink the Clown at one point and just honestly, you know, breaking that, what they say, the
right here, Doink the Clown should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. This is a character that's instantly recognizable. It's been, you know, a known character for over 20 years. Yeah, I think I was the number 6, maybe. I can't remember which number I was, but did it on the pay-per-view. It was I was in Colorado. I can't remember the pay-per-view, but they had JBL's Barroom Brawl, and the Conquistadors were in it, and then Doink came out, and everybody thought it was Brooklyn Brawler, and then the Brooklyn Brawler came out. So it was just like a set that we fought with everybody.
Respect, man. Hey, honestly, I love to have fun with the guests on my show, and I'm just going to cut right to it, man. This is like an icebreaker I like to do with everyone who's on the show. So real quick, and do you get offended? I'm sorry if I ask you, but do you get offended when people still call you Eugene? Or do you mind?
No.
All right, Eugene, I just want to make sure. So Eugene, real quick, do you remember your very first pet? And if so, what was the name of your very first pet?
I had 2 dogs. One was Pierre and one was Dolly. So probably Pierre.
Okay, Pierre. And do you remember the very first street that you lived on?
We lived on Cemetery Road.
Okay, so we're going to say Pierre Cemetery Road, right? Mm-hmm. Now, put that thing together, put those 2 words together. And this is the worst dad joke because I've been working on my dad joke for the last 3 years, man, becoming a father, working on it. That is literally your porn name. Is it a terrible joke? You have Pierre Cemetery Road or Pierre Cemetery. I mean, I don't know if it will buy or sell, but that's probably like one of the worst jokes of all time. But yeah, man, that's like the one thing I like to do when I crack jokes. Mine honestly would be Sparky Hitchin Post. My dog was Sparky, and yeah. So but yeah, man, I'm talking to Eugene, y'all. We are on Already Rolling. This is going to be on YouTube probably tomorrow. This is definitely one of the best, if not the dopest interview I've ever had. My brother's going to freaking blow his top off the roof. So when one of my most memorable, I'll say, I think everyone's most memorable moments of you, it had to been when, you know, Jonathan Coachman was, you know, getting on you in the ring and he told you get out of here. Next thing you know, the biggest pop came out. It's The Rock. My man, tell me that experience. How was that for you? Just honestly being a part of something that you didn't really, I mean, I heard you expected it, but what was the story to that?
Well, we were in San Diego, and on the West Coast, we got to be at the building 4 hours early. So we were at the building at like 10 or 11 a.m. And Sylvain Grenier, who was one half of La Resistance, he was good friends with Pat Patterson, and Pat was in the meeting at the beginning of the day. The wrestlers aren't in there, but Pat told Sylvain comes up to me, and he said, you know, they're going to do something big with you today. They're either going to use Rhino or they're going to bring in The Rock. And I sat there and I thought, I said, The Rock ain't coming. He's in LA. He's doing a movie. I mean, and no dissing to Rhino. He's great, but he's no Rock. And I'm like, he's not going to show up. There's no way. So they went on, and the average time everybody's got to be there, whatever, coming Wednesday, he's not coming. And he ended up showing up. And I was like, oh my God. But I was on like 6 segments that day on TV. That's when Eugene was high, right?
Yeah.
And I was running around going from this set to talking about the match to this to back to The Rock. And he's cutting the promo with Brian Gerwick, who was the writer that wrote all the Rock stuff. And he wrote Eugene stuff. And every time I had one line in that whole thing. You know what I mean? Whatever The Rock says, it doesn't matter what your name is.
Yep.
Whatever I said to Coach. And I missed it every time. We were practicing it. Live in the ring. Rock strutting around, he just puts the mic down and he walked by me, he goes, your line's next, kid. And he just fed me right there. And it was that 15, 17, 19 minutes, whatever it was, that made Eugene as a star. And The Rock didn't know me. He didn't have to do that. He did it for the business. He reached down and picked somebody up. And that's what the top guys are supposed to do. And I'm forever grateful because he made my career right there.
Respect, man. Respect to The Rock, man. And respect to just being for real. Respect to Coach too. I don't know why, but I don't know. I think he gets a bad rap, but he played his part too. I don't know.
Perfect.
You know what I mean, man?
Yeah.
I loved how he was either the heel commentator, even from his early days of SmackDown when he even had hair. Like, I'm no disrespect to Coach, but Coach, I watched Coach growing up doing his thing. Now he's doing great in Madden, man. So respect to Coach.
The thing is, though, Coach is like a better athlete, and he's a lot bigger than you think he is. He was a college basketball player. I mean, he's a good athlete, but he was like kind of in the position of being a goofy announcer sometimes, and a heat announcer. So 2015, I started my own wrestling company in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yes, sir.
Sold it, but 2017 or 18, Coach came up and I wrestled him at one of my shows, and it was a big benefit because his father had a heart attack and he wanted to get some awareness on, go get your heart checked out and have all the preparations, all the stuff you need, in case something happens, because he almost lost his father. But his dad came and we had a big match in Sioux Falls. It was Coach versus Eugene 2.
That's dope, man. That's a dope story, man. I love hearing that you guys actually still have relationships to this day. And that was actually one of my questions that I was going to ask you. Who do you still, affiliate yourself with in the business that you grew up with in the early days in the WWE?
Well, like Rob Conway and Doug Basham and Danny Basham are guys that I started with at OVW that we all made it to WWE. So I keep up with them. Damian Sandow, who was Aaron Stevens, I talk to him every now and then. And like every now and then, if I see something that Cena has done that like I think's cool, I'll text him, but I don't want to keep up with him too much. When I think when he was on the Bumblebee movie, I was like, wow, man, that's a huge accomplishment. You're probably in the Illuminati now, right? And he goes, what makes you think I haven't been in the whole time? My mind was blown right there.
Well, Vince, honestly, he's definitely a character that I think I did my research on you. You gave him the kudos to be on your Mount Rushmore at some point. So a lot of people don't give him that kind of respect. And I can agree with you that without Vince McMahon, I don't think wrestling would be what it is today. And that's just being a guy that's 28 years old. So I know he's been doing a lot.
He either needs to be George Washington or the creator of Mount Rushmore, like the designer. He's one or the other. But if you make him George Washington, then that throws everything else off. Because then, somebody that needs to be on there needs to be like 8, Mount Rushmore heads in pro wrestling.
Respect, man. No, for real. Respect. Tell me about William Regal, man. Because I see you guys, when I grew up watching y'all, the on-camera chemistry, it just looked like it was like that. It looked like you guys really didn't need to practice. How was William Regal's impact on Eugene's career?
Oh, without William Regal, I would have not been able to do anything. He was the perfect foil, but I felt like in that Eugene run, William Regal almost got humanized. Like before that, he was always the villain, and it was always the same. But you see him endear himself to someone else, to love someone else, and it's like this guy's really, he's got a really good story. And I met William Regal, so I was also trained by Rip Rogers. Rip Rogers wrestled in Germany. Rip Rogers was the one that dictated to William Regal what to tell Bill Watts so that he could get hired in the United States. And I'd known William Regal, but I'd always looked up to him because first and foremost, I was a wrestler, and I've always thought he's a great, technical wrestler. And then I got paired with him. Like Brian Gerwick wrote that, and it was like the perfect odd couple. And then they had, Eric Bischoff was Eugene's uncle, so it gave me instant credibility. And I was fortunate enough to be written into a very good situation. I was given, top billing right away, and Brian Gerwick could write for the character, and he was always coming up with something good and fresh. And it was when I went on the Chris Jericho's highlight reel, the next week, Jericho told me that was the highest rated segment in the previous 2 years.
Wow, I can believe it, man. I know exactly. As soon as you tell it, I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. That's so crazy, man. So I'm not trying to cut you off, man, but it's like the childhood kid in me really is like smiling so hard because you really took a character that I can honestly say in the world that we're living in today might not have made it, but it would have definitely stirred the pot. How was that meeting? I remember seeing you say something at one point, but I want to hear for everyone who's going to watch this. How was that meeting when you talked to Vince and you told him, hey, I got this idea at this right time? I think it was at the right time, right?
So I wrestled for like 8, almost 9 years when I finally got called up in May of 2004. But leading up to that, we would be at OVW and the agents would come down. And it was Rip Rogers, Rip Rogers' son has autism. And Rip gave me the idea, what about a character that's like a Rain Man type character that, you know, he might not be very social, but the minute he gets in the ring, he can do stuff that he's seen on TV flawlessly. He knows, and an extension to the character that we never really fleshed out was Eugene knew all the trivia, all the backstories. He knew, you know, the quote or the facts from like a show 20 years ago, drew this many people and this much money and what happened, and like knew all of that. I presented that to the agents, guys like Dean Malenko and Fit Finley and Arn Anderson. They're like, well, wrestling's kind of gone beyond that. We don't do that gimmicky stuff anymore. We are more reality based. Okay. A couple months went by. The writers came down. The writers didn't come down often. I presented it to the writers. Vince would never do anything like that. Vince wouldn't do a character like that. Okay. So at that point, I was living in Louisville, which is my hometown. I was on top on OVW. You know, I was the top heel or top babyface. But I wanted to make it to TV, and I'd seen a lot of guys complain about having to live in Louisville, about having to be in OVW, and they would get called up. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I told Doug Basham, I said, I think I'm going to quit and try to go to Japan. I didn't know anybody in Japan. I had no connection to Japan. That was just a bluff.
Wow.
Doug told Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko told Johnny Ace. Next thing I know, February 2004, I was sitting in a meeting with Vince McMahon and Stephanie. Vince goes, I want to get back to character-based wrestling. And I said, what about this character? And it was pretty much like, okay, we'll start next week. But aside to it, like I was in the meeting with Vince and he's pondering the ideas of Rain Man of wrestling, and Steve Austin walked in. Steve Austin, I think they filmed a Saturday Night's Main Event that night, and Austin had come back in early February to promote something. Austin walks in, Vince goes, Steve, you ever seen this kid wrestle? No, I haven't. I said, well, Nightmare Danny Davis trained me because I knew Danny and Austin became friends when they were in Dallas. So Austin kind of looks at me and goes, well, he's probably one of the best. And it was like that vote of confidence from a guy that did not know me to Vince McMahon. It's like, all right, let's run with it.
Wow. And the rest is history, like right off of that.
So before I started on TV, they wanted to see they wanted to see if I could do it, the character. Because I don't think they thought it was going to succeed. And it was kind of just a joke that was going to be played on Bischoff, that, you know, the special kids related to Bischoff, whatever. And they said they had me wrestle before I was on TV in St. Louis. It was I remember the Final Four was going on. So it was an afternoon show. It wasn't packed, but it was a good house in St. Louis. And I wrestled Lance Cade. And I love Lance Cade. And he knew how to wrestle with a gimmick character. You can't just beat Eugene up. If you pick on Eugene, you're going to get more heat than if you beat him up, because nobody wants to see that. But if you pick on him, God damn it, that makes people mad. And that's what he did. And cheated, and I lost. And the people were chanting Eugene's name. Never seen me before.
Never seen me.
And that doesn't happen on a live event for WWE. You know what I mean? Guys that they don't know, most of the time they're just going to either get no reaction or they're going to get booed. And they were chanting Eugene's name when he lost. I come back through the curtain, and I remember Stephanie was on tour with Triple H and Arn Anderson and Fit, and they all stand up and give me a standing ovation. And Triple H was like, you know, you embraced the character. You became the character out there. And it was magic that happened. But then when they put me with Regal, going back to that was like another level. Our pair together was just the on-air chemistry was in the building. It was really a magical. The time that Eugene pressed all the pyrotechnics and they all went off.
Yeah.
He and I practiced that in the afternoon, and we were giggling like school kids because it was just so everybody's jumping. What the hell's that? Everything's going off, and it was just a magical time where everything came together.
Dude, it looked like you had so much fun too being Eugene. Like, honestly, man, you look like you was a free spirit. And honestly, I wish when y'all guys, I'm originally from South Carolina, Charleston to be exact. I wish when you guys came down to the Coliseum, you never was there. It was like in 06 and 07. I always miss Eugene. I really wish I got to see you, because the crowd reactions every time, man, the signs, used to have people who had the backwards E, and just being for real, not lying, grew up dyslexic. I actually used to write my E like that. So it was kind of like, man, you was helping people out in the sense of not even knowing. Did you know the impact that you were doing while you were in character, you know, giving people motivation to,
not really, while I was doing it. Like once you jump on that train of being on TV and being one of the top guys, it's like a train that's just going, and you're just like surreal. Things are just happening in the outside world, and you're just focused on the next hour, the next day. But looking back now, I think it was a year and a half ago, I was in an autograph signing in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, And
Okay.
a kid came up to me and he's like, he got the picture with Eugene, got a photo, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I want you to read this, and handed me his phone. And it was a text message from his mother to me saying, my son has high functioning autism. And at a time when he didn't have a father, you were on TV and you gave him hope because he was always the weird kid at school. But Eugene succeeded and he was the weird guy and he knew he could do it. Now he's married, he's got a job, and he's like, he's standing in front of me and it just looked like anybody else. And I couldn't finish reading it without crying. And so I had him text it to me, and I tried to read it. After that, I couldn't read it. I went on Bischoff's, one of his podcasts, not the 64 weeks, but the second one.
Yeah.
And I made him read it because I couldn't do it. And he started crying. And it was just like emotional to know that Eugene did benefit people out there that are in that, demographic, that gave them hope, that gave them, the idea that they could succeed. And I really, it's awesome that I could do that.
In the words of the one-time great philosopher Stone Cold Steve Austin, oh hell yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Oh hell yeah, you did, Eugene. I'm not lying, man. Thank you, man. This is really like top tier. Like I'm saying, bucket list has been achieved. Like, but I gotta ask you, man, because you wrestled, and like people could look back on the history books. You wrestled, and this could probably be, you can tell me if it's a touchy subject, Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship, man. Like, knowing that, most people would be like, yeah, he's probably not going to win that, but you still had that on the card. Can you say, or can you explain that opportunity? Was that do you think that was like a set opportunity for you? Was that just like, TV time, or how was that experience for you?
Again, I was on that train and it was another TV, but looking back now, the picture of me I had the tag belt and I had the world title in my hand, running around like Rick Steiner, running around the ring. I mean, it was a really cool moment. And Chris had come down to OVW and wrestled me before I was ever on TV. And Chris elevated me to like a star in Louisville. I wrestled for 20 minutes toe to toe with Chris Benoit at a OVW big live event. And people after that saw me like, okay, this guy could be a star. And was just waiting for that time to make it to TV. And then I did. I got to perform with him. I think Chris Benoit is going to be remembered for his lowest point, but we can't erase him because guys can't duplicate that. He wrestled too hard, too physical, and he caused so much brain trauma that it cursed his life. It's going to curse his legacy, but I felt we can't erase that totally because we can't have someone else doing the same thing. The guys in the NFL with the concussion syndrome are starting, bad things happen to some of them, and we got to figure out that we got to ease up and not destroy our bodies so much. We're not as bulletproof as we think.
Respect, man. Tell me about your organization that you started. I think it was back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is something that is major, and I don't care what no one says. I feel like this is this the biggest accomplishment in your career? Do you think?
I think it's one of them. For me, it is absolutely. I mean, I came into Sioux Falls. My wife is from here. I met her when I was on tour in 2004, and we lived in Louisville, we lived in Phoenix, we lived in Orlando, we traveled around, but she wanted to move back home to where she's from, so we moved back here. And I was like, there's got to be some independent wrestling here because every small town has got some independent wrestling, but there wasn't. The closest independent wrestling was 3 hours south in Omaha, and so there was no wrestling here. And she was on TV. I met her when she was on TV, so the TV culture here allowed us to advertise our wrestling a lot. And my first big angle was against the local meteorologist. I wrestled him in a tuxedo match, and we drew 800 people on a Wednesday night in 2016 during the summer. Hey. It was like, I started this big wrestling company, but I wanted to do it because I didn't want any stress. And it just, for a while, it turned into some stress. So I ended up selling it, but I'm still in with all the guys that I probably coached over 150 students altogether. Wow. And there's still a good number of them that are still wrestling there. And a handful of them bought it from me. So it was a magical time.
That's dope how the job continues to keep on growing with the people that were a part of it. Like, we were just naming some greats that were a part of your career that my uncles and my grandmother watched. Arn Anderson, first ever Intercontinental Champion. I think Pat Patterson. Yep. The guy also, I think Pat Patterson, was he the inventor of the Royal Rumble, or he gave the idea of it? Like, that's crazy. You were around wrestling royalty at an early age, man. So like, you had to soak all this stuff up like a sponge. And I see the Eugene character, just talking to you now, it makes more sense. Like the way you used to do like the Stone Cold Stunner as just like a regular move, or the
Mhm.
rock bottom. Man, it was like you were absorbing all those characters into one. I would have loved, like, I can't remember if you were on any video games or not, man. Were you?
Yeah, I was on the 2006 Raw versus SmackDown. And then I was on the Night of Day of Reckoning. That
Day
was
of
only
Day of
it was
Reckoning.
only on one system though. It wasn't
GameCube.
on all platforms. Yeah, because it was sold a lot, but it didn't sell across all of them.
It was only on GameCube, man. I'll never forget that. My grandmother took the game away from us because we had bad grades. I'll never forget that. But man, Eugene, so it's just so funny to understand that the world of wrestling is evolved in the time it has. From just being for real back in the day, a lot of people, they used to make fun of me for being a wrestling fan. And now you see it as one of the most multimedia worldwide things. It's on Fox. SmackDown's on Fox now. Like, just, it was never like that. What do you think is your favorite thing, or do you see a positive minus compared to when you were in the business? What's something that you like compared to like back in the day? It's like, oh wow, this really changed.
I feel like the bullying campaign was a very, very positive, thing that they did, and I assume they're still doing it. The Be a Star campaign. When I was a coach in the Performance Center, that was the big thing that they were pushing, and I felt like that was a positive force, and that wrestling was portraying, and just the fact that they really cleaned up the bad parts of wrestling. Back when it was a little bit looser, a little bit more independent, a little bit more outlaw, there were still some straggling demons or whatever you want to call it, but they really tightened up the locker room and made these guys professional athletes.
Yeah. Okay. Respect. Tell me about Triple H and how he helped you in your career. Guys, saw you guys headline. Well, you were a part of a crucial match at SummerSlam. And how was Triple H to you, man?
He was cool to me. I mean, I could see where he's in the top spot and everything's written for him. But on the flip side of it, of course you're going to write it for him because he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You write it for Stone Cold walked out on you. You write it for Brock walked out on it. Cena goes to the movies, Rock goes to the movies. Triple H is always going to be there. So you're going to write the best stuff for the family, which they've always done. The invasion angle, everybody complained that the invasion angle was horrible, but it ended up becoming about Shane and Stephanie and Vince and the family. And that was the smartest thing for them. You know what I mean? Because if it would have been Stone Cold's brand and Brock's brand and Rock's brand, and then they all leave, you got nothing. You got to depend on the people that you know are going to be there.
That's true. Can you tell me one of the funniest road memories, like on the road, onto the next city? Like, what was one of the funniest moments that you could possibly tell the people?
So when I first met my wife, I would call her every night or text her or whatnot. And I had a couple adult beverages, and I was going to bed, and I was sending her maybe a racy text about things I would like to do to her when I saw her. And her name's Stephanie. And on my contact list, right next to Stephanie, is Shelton Benjamin. And I sent it to the wrong person. So the next day in the locker room, Shelton's like, "You're not sticking that in there. I'm not going to be doing that." Sorry, Shelton. Sorry.
So you sent a drunk text to Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah.
It was supposed to go to your wife.
Yeah. In detail about all the things that I wish to do. A little embarrassing.
Yo, that's hilarious, man. Hey. Shout out to Shelton Benjamin, another South Carolina native, man.
Yeah.
One of the best athletes of all time.
So, when I first got on the road, I rode with Regal and I rode with Tajiri. We were a car.
Okay.
When Regal got drafted to SmackDown and Cena came to Raw, it was me and Cena and Tajiri. So when I was riding with Regal and Tajiri, Regal would normally sleep in the mornings. Tajiri and I would get up, have a little breakfast, and go to the gym. And we didn't have breakfast, go to the gym. And then afterwards, one day he goes, "Let's go to McDonald's." We went to McDonald's. Next day we go to the gym. He goes, "Let's go to McDonald's." I said, "Man, I can't go to McDonald's 2 days in a row. Can we at least go to Burger King?" He goes, "I can't say Uber. I say Big Mac. I can't say Uber." Okay. So some time went on. Regal goes to SmackDown. Cena comes to Raw. We're riding with Cena. We're at Applebee's and the electricity goes out. And they said, "Well, we can keep giving you drinks, but we can't cook any food." I guess it's all microwave, right? So we're just sitting there getting drunk, candles lit, fans are on the bar. And it'd been a couple hours. And finally Jerry goes, "God damn, I'm so hungry. I can eat a Whopper." Uber, sorry, Uber.
I got him. Did Jerry. We knew he could say it the whole time. So he needed a couple of drinks to actually say it, huh?
Well, it's like a lot of times the Japanese wrestlers that I have met can all speak English very well, but sometimes they selectively can speak English when it might not be in their best interest. I'll say, I don't know. I can't say Uber.
Man, this is hilarious, man. Like I said, I'm talking to Eugene on Already Rolling Silver Rides, and I'm not gonna hold you much too longer. I just got a few more questions. I'm gonna let you go. I'm really gracious for your time, man. But before we go, man, so when you looking back at all the things that you've done, and just being for real, man, this is not a dark question, but first and foremost, before I ask that, I'm gonna go here. Because my wife you're talking about your wife, I gotta talk about my wife. My wife is actually from the same city you're from, 502. Shout out to 502. We're literally 100 miles from Louisville, Kentucky right now, man. So we go back there all the time. Do you go back there? Do you go back home any time to visit?
I was when my mom lived there, but 2015 she moved to Tampa. She was St. Pete. So I've been back there occasionally, but I don't go back that often.
Man, I'm gonna throw this cheap plug out there, Eugene. Anytime you do go back out there, let me know, man. You gotta go out to the family restaurant, Ada's Kitchen. It's on Broadway downtown. They have the best soul food in the city, and I'm definitely making sure you're getting a free plate because you're a hometown hero. But yeah, man, honestly, if you ever like looking back at the OVW career, I did the research, man. That's like you're one of the GOATs up there thinking about it. Like you had the belt so many times, like. They should name it they should name it after you. Like, what was do you think that I mean, that's still going on Ohio Valley Wrestling?
Yep,
that's definitely like the cream of the crop. I would say the Harvard of wrestling schools. Are there any other schools that you would give like recognition to, or is that like the top tier school that wrestlers want to go out to get developed?
When Lance Storm was training, I would direct a lot of people to Lance Storm, but Al Snow's training there in OVW, and it's a very good system there. There's a lot of people that are credible trainers in a lot of different places, but OVW is something a bit more. I mean, it's got live television every Wednesday night, and they've been on TV. They've been on TV longer than SmackDown. I mean, it's a tradition. But it's really cool. I was there maybe a year and a half ago. I wrestled Jesse Goddard's a year and a half ago, I think. And then I helped train Mamahali Shira when he was in India.
Okay.
I went to India for 3 months to help train the Ring King wrestlers that TNA did. I went to Salvio Vega. Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantell kind of sent us. So literally, Dutch Mantell calls me and goes, "Hey, we go to India? All right, Dutch. When do you need me to leave? 2 weeks from now. Okay." And I got on a plane. I had no idea who I was meeting. I had a phone number and a name that I couldn't pronounce. And I get off the plane in India, and there was a worker from the airport. I saw his, I said, can you call this number and find out where I'm supposed to go? And he's trying to push me into a cab. I didn't want to turn my phone on because I didn't want international roaming charges. So I was trying to find the guy without turning my phone on. And this guy, the worker's trying to push me in a cab. And so you need to get in the cab. So it didn't feel right. So I turned my phone on, and the guy that was looking for me was like 15 feet away from me. And I'm like, this guy was trying to put me in a cab. I don't know if they're going to try to steal my kidney or what. It was a little scary there.
I bet it was, man. So speaking of like international travel, what was the best city that you think you wrestled in?
Man, Japan was cool. Vancouver was cool. Wrestling in Germany was cool. Australia is always awesome. I mean, it's hard to tell. Even within the United States, the Pacific Northwest, there's not a whole lot of people that really talk about how awesome the Pacific Northwest is. But like, Portland, Oregon is a phenomenal city. I would love to live there. Yeah. Las Vegas, places like that in the desert. I lived in Phoenix for a while. I mean, it's just they're so completely different within the United States. And Puerto Rico, I had a lot of fun in Puerto Rico. The locker room had just open blood and chickens on the floor. It was awesome.
Wow, man, this is wild. So, you know what else is wild, and it's so funny. You can never call it the game. You got the highest moments, and you got the lowest moments. And watching throughout the matches that I had to watch, just getting information on you, man, and seeing how you went down that knee injury, man. Do you think without that injury, your career would have, would have still lasted a little bit longer? Or just being for real, like, did that stop? Did that literally stop the whole train on the Eugene train? Did that slow it down?
It definitely slowed it down, but when I came back, I went right into the angle with Kurt Angle, where I got his gold medal.
You won the medals.
but I literally I tore my patella tendon, which is supposed to have like a 9 to 10 month healing time. And I was back in 6 months. I was nowhere near ready to be back. And if you watch some of those first matches, I couldn't run. I couldn't pivot. I was like on one leg. My one leg was atrophied.
Yeah, the match that you won the medal in, you was limping.
Yeah,
I
couldn't do it. So I mean, it definitely hindered, but they put me right back into the top spot, and it took off again. Christy Hemme was my cheerleader.
Yep.
Go team.
Shout out to her. Respect, man. Respect, man. You did that. And then just being for real, like, I gotta ask you about JR, man, because without Jim Ross, I feel like he was definitely like the voice for you, the sentimental voice. When anytime anyone did anything dirty, it was like Jim Ross was ready to whip their ass for you, man. How was his impact, or did he have like any notes that he ever like taught you backstage, or anything that you always can remember, or any quotes? Because he's definitely the king of one-liners. Like, is there anything that you could always remember that Jim Ross told you?
Jim Ross was always in my corner. He liked me before I was Eugene, but I think the fact that I just went slow and I could physically make the facial of the situation, and he could just easily call it. We know how Eugene's feeling. Oh my gosh, he's scared. Look at him, he's scared. Yeah. He's really upset now. Oh my gosh, you made him mad, because I was slow and they put the camera on my face. When they want you to be a top guy, they're gonna put the camera on your face. When you're not, they pull back and they show a shot of the ring, which they see some action, but you don't get that personal connection when you can see someone's face up close. And that's how you can tell when they're really putting the pencil behind somebody, is they'll start doing close-ups. And JR could just call it, but he's probably the best, if not just one of the best at doing that. So he was definitely instrumental. And Lawler, who'd always, he'd been a wishy-washy, sometimes a heel, but sometimes a babyface. He was right there in Eugene's corner too. But I always loved the King. I mean, I grew up in Louisville watching USWA, and I got to wrestle. It was me and Corey Macklin against Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Hart in the Mid-South Coliseum.
Wow.
And it was in December when I was on TV. I was coming back from that knee injury, and it was one of the first matches I had back. And during the day, we did live TV in Memphis, and they were going to give away 2 free cars from a local used car lot. And we brawling on live TV, and we go out in the parking lot, and Jimmy Hart and Lawler, the heels, jump in the first car and take off. And we're on live TV, and me and Corey jump in the second car. You can win this car tonight at the Mid-South Coliseum, and it doesn't start. And Corey's going, no! Big build-up. We're supposed to do a car chase scene, and the car wouldn't start. You could win this car, ladies and gentlemen, tonight.
And it didn't start. This is so crazy, man. The stories, I feel like you can write books for days, because just being for real, a guy like me is going to read it forever, man. Just pick your brain forever, but I'm not going to do it. I got a certain amount of time with just being for real, one of the great characters, and just being for real, underrated. I'm going to give you your flowers, man. You were underrated talent in the ring. I think the character of Eugene kind of masked what you actually were, your abilities in the ring. Like, a lot of people were just looking at, being that character, but you really were a great wrestler. You were a technical sound wrestler, man. You could hold your own. So respect to you, man.
I appreciate that, but I'm wrestling. Where's that daggum poster I'm looking for on my phone here? I'm wrestling coming up in, I think it's New York. I'm wrestling that Dirty Fandango. He's whatever his name is now.
Respect.
80s Wrestling Con, Saturday, May the 6th, in Minden Sports Arena in Morristown, New Jersey. I'm gonna wrestle.
Eugene's about to wrestle. That
dirty dango who used to be a Fandango. I want to teach him the hokey pokey. I'm gonna turn myself around.
Respect, man. Respect. Hey, Eugene, man. Nick, I do appreciate this. I am literally going to end this interview right now. I just want to throw the floor to you, give you the floor to let people know where they can find you at, let them know everything else you got going on. You just threw the plug out for the match, but where everyone else can find you at and everything, man.
I'm on Twitter at the letter U, Gene, Dinsmore, which is right there, Dinsmore. But my favorite is my YouTube channel, the Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel. I've got a lot of the matches that I had in USWA, the WCW matches, some of the extra work that I did with WWE before I was ever on TV. And I got an eBay store where I sell some merch, some action. The best part about having your own action figures is you get to play with yourself in public. So check me out.
Hey, man, thank you so much, Eugene. This was an honor. And I'm Sterling Silver. Do you mind doing something for the camera before you go, man?
Absolutely.
Hey man, you mind just saying, hey, my name is Eugene. I'm on Silver Rides and we're already rolling.
Hello, everybody. You know me. My name is Eugene, and we're on Silver Rides, and we're already rolling. Yeah.
This is so dope. I can't believe you just did that like that, dude. That's wow. Thank you, man. God bless you. Stay safe. And I'm definitely going to buy some merch for sure.
Thank you, my friend. Be careful. All right.
Thank you. Peace, Eugene.
Perpetrating a fraud.
Yeah,
No, I ain't. I put the crack in the Liberty Bell.
yeah.